Morning. Good morning. We are in the second week of our study, which is the Bible and the Constitution for we the people. And today we're going to be focusing on just weight and false balance. Just weight and false balance. Theme scripture throughout the study, 2 Chronicles 7:14. Purpose. And that is to address our current culture and the direction of our country as it relates to the Bible and our country's founding documents. You know, last week I made the statement that there's a battle for the soul of our country. And we're talking about that. We talked about it last week. We'll talk about it this week. But there's also a pathway to restoring our country. And I think a great way to talk about this is just a segue from last week, which last week we were talking about biblical worldview, secular humanism. We were talking about religion and morality. Bill's going to lead us into that. He's got some thoughts that kind of wrap up some of what we talked about last week.
So. A couple of things. Thanks for joining us on our second week. Looks like most of you came back again, which is a good thing. I'm Bill, and so I'm part of this great group, the Three Amigos. And so we're looking at the Bible, we're looking at the Constitution, and we could delve into what's going wrong with the country and so forth. But this is going to be a positive, like the first one, like salt and light. You're going to be learning some definitions of things as you go through. And I thought I'd just stop for a second. It's not on the slide. About what a worldview is again. A worldview is the way we think, it's the way we live, and it's the lens we use to see the world and its values. Dr. Jack Graham, he is a pastor, past president of the Southern Baptist Convention, has dealt a lot with the things that are going on in this world kind of thing. He's got some great things to say. He did some looking at what a worldview, how does one get a worldview? And he found it from 18 months of age, that's when your worldview starts to begin, when you're able to walk around a little bit as a baby. By 13 years of age, it's almost complete. That's 13. Between the teen years and 20s, it's completely formed. And so some of you are past that age today, and have got a worldview already in your mind, okay? And you can have a secular worldview, you can have a biblical worldview. So what we're trying to do is to harp on what is the biblical worldview on things in the Bible and in the Constitution. So you have that information. The second one that's up here now, go to the next one. Is that Jack found out that there's three ways that you can look at what the secular worldview is that's going on right now. You can be complicit, and complicit is a word like aiding and abetting, or contributing to, or generating, or starting things, okay? And so basically you partner with the problems that are going on in this world. You'll see education, and they're saying anti-parents against education, and say, well, that's okay. But that's being complacent. Say nothing about what's going on. Just continue to preach John 3:16, everything's going to be okay. Just let the world just continue to throw stuff at us. And then it's time to be courageous. And I think that's where we're heading on with this course. Okay, like Joshua, we got to put things away that are bad for this country, and bad for the Bible, bad for the Constitution. And so we choose Jesus, be faithful in worship and no sin. Those kind of things are things that we're going to try to deal with. I could spend time, and you would think that if I turned the lights out in here, okay, it would be hard to see what's going on. And so Satan would have you believe that the stuff that's going on today is something that's everybody is buying into. And this is we didn't make a slide of this yet, but we could be going that way and learning all the things about CRT and cheap voting systems and woke is okay and no leadership and lying's all right and corruption's okay and killing babies is okay and no standards, and foreign policy is unknown. We could spend a lot of time doing that. We've done a lot of things, got a lot of details about those kinds of things. But think of this as our class is looking at a way to look at it from the light side rather than the dark side. Satan would like us to believe that just stay in darkness and he'll just guide you. He'll provide a way to go through this and so forth. Think the light's turned out and he's going to tell everybody, okay, just follow along with me and just believe everything I'm saying. But this course is all about light. And the light is, we want to focus on the Bible, we want to focus on the Constitution, what's right about each of those, and guide each of us so that we have a biblical worldview of what's going on today and we make the right decisions come voting time, come times when we make decisions in school, board meetings, and all those kinds of things. So you'll be enlightened for that. Okay? Today we're going to talk about balancing and so forth, and I restore antique clocks. And I carry a level with me at all times. So I know whether a clock is in balance or not when I'm first looking at it, okay? And I have to make some adjustments to get that back in sync, back in balance, all right? And so having balance is a good thing, all right? A couple of things are happening in the Congress in South Carolina. They passed it's called a REACH Act compliance policy. The General Assembly asked the Commission on Higher Education to ensure the public institutions comply with the REACH Act provisions to collect information necessary from public institutions to ensure compliance. Starting soon, there's going to be a 3-credit course in which all undergraduate students in South Carolina public institutions of higher learning to complete this course. And the documents they'll be looking at are the founding documents. They'll be teaching the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Emancipation Proclamation, at least 5 of the Federalist Papers, and other documents to support what our country is all about. We need to turn to the Scriptures and find the Scriptures that help us to give us the skill to be able to combat things that are going on in this world. And like Joshua say, that's not for me, but for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And you'll hopefully be in that position when we get through the next course, next week and so on.
Proverbs 11:1 says, "A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight."
We're going to discuss debt, what it means to dilute our currency, causing inflation, our currency devaluation over our lifetimes and beyond. We're going to compare ourselves to Rome and what they went through. A lot of similarities. You're going to learn about something called BRICS. And that is increasingly becoming an issue in this world. It's an alternative to the dollar. The Bible says debt is slavery. It reduces the individual or the country to where they can be controlled. Debt was forbidden for the Israelites by God, for good reason. Maybe too much. Debt undermines nations and enslaves people. If you want to take a country down, you put it in debt, in other words. That's what you do. You add on more and more and more debt, not just for the government itself, but for the people themselves. In Deuteronomy 15:6, "For the Lord your God will bless you as he promised you. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. You shall reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over you." Being debt-free is a strength. It's not a weakness. In Proverbs 22:7, pretty clear. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Does everybody understand that debt is a bad thing when it gets to be excessive? I don't call it a sin because it's okay to go into debt at times, but you are to repay what you owe. And the Bible says the wicked borrows and does not repay. I don't see how America ever repays. It's so far in the hole. And I don't want my country being wicked. Okay?
We as individuals and families can have the same problem. You know, we can overextend ourselves. I know Teresa and I in early marriage we got a little bit too much, you know, but we put our heads down and buckled down and dug ourselves out. But you know, this is not just about a country. It's about individuals too.
So who is the world's largest debtor? You care to make a guess? How's that look? It's not even close. Not even close. We owe more to everybody else in the world, including our private institutions through our government, than anybody else in the world. So how do we go into debt? We talked about the oath last week, right? So they break their oaths of office. They spend more than they bring in. And most of what they spend on is not allowed by the Constitution if you believe in original intent. It's just not possible for them to do. Now that would upset some people because there are programs in one thing or another that are not authorized by the Constitution, should not be. They're state and local issues. We're going to get into that later. But that's where we are. We spend money on studying how much gas cows we emit and that kind of thing. We study the mating habits of some kind of fruit fly or something that's over in Africa that we have nothing to do with. We spend money on paying off politicians through foreign aid in other countries to let us put a military base there. We spend money around the world that we are not authorized to do by the Constitution. It all adds up. And they create dependency in doing that. Okay? So the people keep voting him back in office, so who's at fault? We are. It's pretty clear. These are our employees. We own this country. It was given to us through a lot of sweat and blood from the founders who won our liberty from Great Britain. This belongs to us. It was turned over to the people. It's the first time in history it's ever been done that way, that I know of. And yet, the people have been asleep for a long time and complacent, just like Bill was talking about.
So is there one person in our government that you trust right now?
That I trust. I'm going to defer that to a later slide and we will answer your question. Okay?
Well,
Or I will. I'll do my best.
there's nobody to trust.
I don't think nobody's the right answer.
Well, people will tell you we're gonna do this and that and the other, when they get in there, they don't do it.
Then be due diligent as a citizen and hold them accountable for lying and run them out of office on the next cycle. That's what's got to be
Yeah, I'm gonna
done.
walk in there and do that.
That's what has to be done.
No, it's
God's
just about-
people have to do it at the ballot box.
Yes, you're right, Mark. But I'm saying they talk pretty. And they tell you they're gonna do it.
You've known me for a long time, Glenda. Could you discern if I'm lying to you or not?
Yes.
If you're knowledgeable with the scriptures, can you look at me, and if I start saying something outside of bounds, and if you're knowledgeable with the Constitution, can you look at me and tell me, he's telling me a lie right now? I think you can. I think you can discern whether somebody's lying to you or not. I believe you can.
Well, so part of your point was not what they say, but what they do.
What they do.
And
You are
if they
spot
haven't
on.
done what they said they would do or what they should do, then they should be voted out of office.
Exactly, and a lot of what they say, you need to catch and correct them. You shouldn't be doing that because you don't have the authority in the first place. It was not granted to you. That's where we've got to get to.
There is no perfect candidate, okay, but you gotta discern. You gotta discern. And, if it weren't for people, everything would be perfect, right? I mean, if everybody just do like me, why can't we just get along, Everybody do like me and we'll be fine. But we're people, and people are weak, and people do wrong things, and we have to do our best at discerning. You're right. Is there a perfect candidate? No. But we've got, and that's not, we're up here to say there's a perfect candidate. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to tell you what the Bible says and what the Constitution has to say. So, discernment's a big part of
This is
that.
gonna take some work.
Fighting the cheating that goes on.
All of it, everything. It's gonna take work. And when it comes down to it, you think about it. Our ancestors stood up against the British with a bunch of cannons against the biggest army in the world, and they beat them, okay? Because they had God on their side, and they had an unbreakable will, and they knew what they needed to do, and they stood together, and they stared down those cannons. My ancestors were at Cowpens, and I understand exactly what they had to go through, okay? If you think about it, we've got to do it again. Except we have a system in place that allows us to do it without violence. We can go and learn and deal with who can do what and hold them accountable at the ballot box. And we've got to recruit candidates. And we've got to inform ourselves, and we've got to stay on top of it. The price of citizenship is us working. Is that not what Salt and Light was last week? It's an active thing. How long have we sat on our hands and done nothing? We wouldn't be in this shape if we did. In your Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 gives the power of the money to the Congress.
It's on page 6.
It's on page 6. It's Article 1, Section 8. Though Article 1, Section 8 is what Congress has the power to do for a budget. What they can do, what they are authorized to do, and it's not split up to the president or to the courts. It is what powers are given to Congress. Okay? So to coin money and to fix the value thereof. Notice the word coin. It doesn't say print, it says coin, which means our money is supposed to be backed by gold and silver. And to reiterate the same thing again, read what they say about the states. No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Could it be any more clear that our money is supposed to be backed by gold and silver, precious metals, even to this day? Because this has never been repealed. Never.
So how did Roosevelt take us off the gold standard?
He broke the law. He broke the Constitution. And Nixon finished it off in 73 because they couldn't pay in specie anymore, in gold and silver, because they wanted guns and butter at the same time without taxing the people. So they said they're going to print their way out of it, and they're going to tax you backdoor. You're going to pay for it one way or the other. There's such a thing. While we're here, I can't help it. We got to do this.
Sorry.
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry.
Anybody know what that is?
Yes.
It's 10 Stoffel. Economics 101. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody pays. Doesn't matter who it is. Okay? That you're going to pay for it in taxes, or you're going to do without, or they're going to print the money and you're going to pay for it in inflation. Inflation is nothing more than another tax. They can borrow for so long, but when the people aren't there to buy the debt, you're going to pay for it. Okay? Somebody somewhere is going to pay for it. And it's the common man that's been paying for it. The rich fat cats up on top that buy Congress, that they buy off the laws to the highest briber, and he works in both parties, so I'm not here to get into that. That's how they do it. And they insulate themselves to where there's loopholes that they don't pay. And I don't want anybody paying any more than what they're supposed to pay. And we shouldn't pay for anything more than what's in the Constitution, and everybody's taxes stay low. Okay?
I just want to say one thing about there's no such thing as a free lunch. And this gets into taxation a little bit, but I'll make one comment there is that, really, they say, well, let business pay more taxes. Businesses don't pay tax. They collect tax from the consumer and remit it. So if their taxes are raised, that means your goods are going to go up in price. So you hear that, it sounds like a good thing sometimes, but you need to understand, it all gets passed down to the consumer.
And when they sell it like that, they're pushing coveting. Because they want you to be envious and jealous of who has the money. That's coveting. And that's how they sell it to the people.
My father would say, nothing's for nothing.
Yep.
That's right. So our money's supposed to be backed by gold and silver, and our I'm gonna explain something here. Our fiat currency money notes are backed by faith in the Federal Reserve, and they're partner in theft, the U.S. government. Okay?
All right,
Fiat currency.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this next slide here. U.S. currency is fiat money. I want to tell a little bit about what fiat money is. Fiat money is currency that's not backed by anything. Nothing solid. It's not backed by gold or silver. It has no intrinsic value. The government takes a piece of paper and prints it, and they declare that that has value, and you can exchange it for legal, you can use it as legal tender to exchange it for debts, and everybody's agreed on that. So our dollars are notes. It's like a promissory note, okay? And the notes are backed by the faith in first the Federal Reserve and then the government. So you'll see that the government gave up the backing of the dollar and turned it over somewhat to the Federal Reserve. So let's look at our currency. And U.S. currency is issued through debt. And that's where it violates the Constitution, as we just went over. And you see these $2 bills right here. The one on your left is a silver certificate. How many remember silver certificates?
Are
Okay.
they still backed by silver or gold?
No, Nixon did away with that, I think, didn't he?
Roosevelt did, and then
Roosevelt,
Nixon took us off
Okay.
a little bit left of the gold standard in '73.
And you see that little red circle right there? That little red circle says this certificate is legal tender for all debts, public and private. And then we went from, you see the one on the right? That is not a silver certificate, it's a Federal Reserve note. And it says the same thing. It says, this note, see, it's not a certificate anymore. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private.
Okay. Just weight versus false balance continued here. Money is a unit of fair exchange and acts as a scale and balance for transactions between buyer and seller. Can y'all agree to that? Okay? So a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Our money is a false balance the way it's set up. Honest weights and scales are the Lord's. All the weights in this bag are his work. People used to cheat each other because they had an extra set of weights down here that were false. You know, it might have been hollowed out, or they might have added a little lead to it to make it weigh more. So they would cheat who was buying what, okay? And that was being called out in the scriptures not to be done, okay? We are not to dilute our currency according to God. That is sin. It steals from the common people. And here we are. Okay, Isaiah 122. Isaiah takes on the corrupt inside of Jerusalem. He goes after them. And he tells them, your silver has become dross and your wine mixed with water. That's the two trading commodities that they had in order to trade with other countries and stuff. They were adding dross back to the silver, which would stretch the silver they had. Dross is the residue. It has no value of what's taken out of the silver ore. They were adding it back to make more coins. You make more coins with nothing to back it. Inflation. You're cheating people, okay? Your wine mixed with water, they were taking their wine and they were watering it down and selling it as first class and sending it over somewhere to pay for whatever they had bought from somebody else. They were cheating people, right and left. God condemns it in Isaiah. And if it's good for Isaiah, it should be good for us. All right. God's warning about dishonest scales. Now, he found this, and I'm tickled to death when he did with this.
So in Amos 8:4-6, God was, speaking through Amos, but he talks about what was happening at the time. And I've just pulled certain pieces out of this scripture, but he says, listen to this, you who rob the poor and trample down the needy. It's interesting that it's always the poor and the needy that get hit the hardest, okay?
Us.
You can't wait for the Sabbath day to be over. See, in the Sabbath day, what to do? They cease business, right? But it says you can't wait for the Sabbath day to be over and the religious festivals to end so you can get back to cheating the helpless, okay? This was happening at that point in time. You measure out grain with dishonest measures. That's back to what Mark was saying. They cheated on the balancing. They cheated on the weights. and cheat the buyer with dishonest scales. And you mix the grain you sell with chaff. Chaff is it says swept off the floor, so chaff is what's left over, and they just mix it in with the grain, and so that's cheating, okay? And then you enslave poor people for one piece of silver. You know, the poor people are indebted. It goes back to what the scripture said before, the rich rule over the poor. It's a fact. Let's talk about inflation. During the pandemic, a lot happened, right? Well, one of the things that, and I pulled this from an article that was actually, I think, written back in a couple of years ago. But it says the world governments, this is all over the world, printed money, okay, to prevent another Great Depression, because we weren't what? We weren't working. They shut down a lot of places. Some states shut down more than other states. Some countries shut down more than other countries. Some countries didn't shut down at all, which is which one?
Sweden.
Sweden didn't shut down at all. But to keep things circulating, they printed money, but it's also pushed up the debt levels because the money, they printed money, sent money out, but there was nothing to back it. They just said, okay, we're going to print more paper and give it to you, okay? And then also in 2020, the largest one-year debt surge since the Second World War happened in 2020. So it was global debt, both public and private, rose to $226 trillion worldwide through the countries. So that was a big point, a big thing that happened at that point in time. And we're still dealing with it.
Yep. All those checks they sent out to people to sit home and do nothing, you're paying for it in the price of eggs and meat and everything else right now.
Well, also our grandchildren are going to be paying for it.
Yes, which is immoral to indebt somebody beyond your lifetime for what you got. That's just immoral. We ought to live within our means. All right. This guy named Milton Friedman, anybody ever heard of him?
Yeah.
All right. Won a Nobel Prize in economics for this kind of stuff right here. He said inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon in the sense that it is and can be produced only by a more rapid increase in the quantity of money than in output. That's a lot of words.
What does that mean, Mark?
It says this: too much printed paper chasing too few goods and services.
Causes the prices to go.
It makes the prices go up because of the dilution of the dollar's value. When they print money out of nothing, it comes, the worth of it comes from every other dollar that was in existence before they did it. So it dilutes. It adds water back to the wine. Okay? All right, demonstration. I've done this a number of times, and it opens people's eyes to where they understand what's going on.
Women and children, stay back.
Don't try this at home.
This is actually pretty simple to get.
Mark's a professional.
Of what? There you go.
What is that, Mark?
This is milk. Okay? Being a good Baptist, I didn't go and buy wine. I bought milk.
You need to help the farmer.
Yeah.
You having trouble getting into that childproof milk?
There you go. This is a half a cup. Okay, I'm gonna put 2 of these in here, just so y'all.
What year does this represent?
1913. That's the gold and silver and the money or whatever you want to think about in existence back then. Okay? 1913, before any of us probably were ever born. I think that's accurate. I think. Okay? Now, this is the gallon of water. Now, when Roosevelt took us off the gold standard in the 30s, he confiscated the gold, made it illegal to own. How he pulled that off, I couldn't tell you. The government will do what it can as long as the people let them buy with it. Okay? Because the Constitution requires gold and silver, so how do you confiscate it? But he did. He called it all in. And they were paying $25 on the ounce back then for gold. Okay? He got it all in and reissued it back out and said, now it's worth $35 on the ounce. So he had another $10 to spend. Same thing has been done throughout time in other places, okay? During the Depression, they had a crisis that the Federal Reserve created, and they admit they did. Ben Bernanke came on, and he used to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He said he told plainly that we caused the Great Depression. The Federal Reserve did. Okay? Now, so Roosevelt right off the bat, Franklin, that Model A is going off somewhere. Appropriate time period, that's right. They were still driving them back then. Okay? So, back then, Roosevelt did this. How much milk do I have? No. I got a cup. He added water to the milk.
No, it has non-fat.
Try cooking with it. Okay? Ever since then, inflation. They report inflation to you. Inflation is adding water to the milk. The Bible says it. Except it's adding water to wine. Okay? Now, if you want to get to where we are today, let's throw another gallon in there. Okay? 3,100% inflation since 1913. Now, if you don't think this is right, what's the earliest each one of you remembers buying a can of Coke or a Pepsi or something like that from a vending machine? What did you pay for it? 5 cents. 5 cents. I've heard 3 before. My record is 15. Okay? My record is 15.
Yeah, it was a small one.
The little short boys.
Bill bought his for 3 cents, I bought mine for 5. I bought yours for 15.
Mine was
No, mine
15.
was 10, yours was 15.
How much is it today?
$2?
$1.50 on up, maybe?
Oh, sometimes it's $2.50.
Yeah. Okay? So what's the difference? You drinking the same thing?
Well, no, it doesn't good sugar.
They use corn sweetener. Yeah, but you see my point. Back when I was born, a gallon of gas would cost you 2 silver dimes and a nickel. 2 silver dimes and a nickel today will buy you a gallon of gas. Okay? No, 2 silver dimes and a nickel. The silver content that's in them will get you gas today. We're spinning in our wheels here. If we, as God's people, are our salt and light, we can stand because we know. We have to educate people. We have to educate people on the Scriptures. We have to educate people on the Constitution. And we have to hold our ground. The Bible says be steadfast and immovable for a reason. Okay? Does this make sense? As to how you've been shafted? Your whole life, and it's still going on. Bake a cake with that. They pass that off as milk because they have legal tender laws and make you accept their money.
When they keep increasing the supply of money or keep continuing to go in debt, the government does go in debt. It just keeps adding to that, which means there's more money in circulation, which means we got too much money chasing too few goods and the price goes up.
Right.
And we diluted the currency, and this doesn't stop, okay? And one more thing, keep this in mind, and y'all go back and check us on this. Hold this group accountable. I want you in there trying to dig and find and see if we've messed anything up, because you're learning in the process, and if we made a mistake, we'll correct it, okay? But a dollar bill, by law, is 6 1/8 inches long. Start right here at your feet, put them end to end. 1 trillion, we're 35 plus in the hole. 1 trillion will go 5 million miles past the sun. Wrap your head around that. That's why I say the Bible says that the wicked borrow and do not repay. There's no way the federal government's going to repay this other than print their way out of it, which is going to take from everybody in here. We have got to downsize. We have got to, and it's gonna hurt. There's some things got to be done, but it's gonna have to happen if we're gonna survive. We've talked about inflation equals dilution, or vice versa. You can interchange them. Inflation, therefore, is theft, as God says in His Bible. And then we have productivity theft. We haven't factored that in yet, okay? You got to take some economics courses to get into some of this stuff, and I talked with some professors just to confirm about this, because it makes perfect sense when you understand it. All right. This is productivity theft, all right? And this is an example. It is not exact. It's so that you guys can understand pretty easy. Let's look at the column here on the left. Every year that goes by, if you're doing things right, businesses get more efficient at selling things, at making things, okay? For example, if I give somebody in this room the job of emptying a dump truck worth of sand, I give them a soup ladle to do it with. Can it be done?
Yes.
Yes. If I swap that out and give them a hand shovel to do it with, did they just get more productive? Yes. If I swap that out and give them a bobcat to do it with, are they more productive? Businesses do these things to get more and more productive so they can stay profitable and stay in business, okay? So productivity across the whole United States grows every year, okay? So let's just pick 2%. We picked that as a target value and 2% as a target value for what the Fed says they want inflation to be every year. See, they're stealing from you 2% automatically by what they're telling you, okay? Now, productivity is deflationary. It's like taking the water back out of the milk. You get more for the money, okay? So as our businesses improve, things should get cheaper. Think about the first time you ever saw a handheld calculator. Now, one that would cost you $100 back when I was growing up, right now they're giving them away for nothing. They'll add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and they got one slot of memory in them. And they're 50 cents to $1 at Dollar General or something. You could buy 5 of them online for probably $2 mailed to you. That's how cheap they are. That's productivity improvements. Okay? So as American businesses get better, prices should be going down. That's deflationary. Okay? So let's just say we got 2% deflation and 2% actual inflation. That means they stole 4% from you. Now over time, look at that last column. It says net effect. You're down, after 20 years, you're down $77 from where you should have been on $100 worth of purchases, from where you should have been. Now, back it all the way up to 1913. This has been going on for a long time. Does this make sense? This needs to make sense. If you add productivity plus inflation, there's a gap there. And they're taking it.
I can help if you want me to.
Feel free. Say it another way.
So I've been able to reduce my product cost so I can pass the savings on to the consumer. So now because of things are cost less, just like the calculator he was talking. You know, I never had a calculator in high school. I never learned to use the slide rule. My brother, he knows how to use the slide rule, but not me. We had to do everything longhand. I didn't have a calculator. Okay, now that when they came out with them, my kids were getting them, I had to go pay $115 for a calculator for them to use. All right, now like Mark said, you can get it for $2. So it lowered the price. That's what this productivity gain is, lowered the price of goods. All right, which means we could use that money to spend on something else. However, the government would tell you their goal is to have a 2% inflation. Well, I improved, say, goods overall reduced by 2%. Okay, but the government wants 2% inflation. They'll even say that. Okay, so that really was a 4% inflation because the 2% gain is included in here. So it was really 4% if you take that into consideration. So now we're at 2% inflation, which means that now my $100 that I had was going to, if it didn't have any inflation, it would have been worth $98. I mean, I had the value of, my cost of goods went down 98. Now my $100 is now, it takes $102 to buy what I was going to get last year. Then this third year, it cost $104. And this is the inflation rate that the government wants us to have. So in year 20, we've got a 45% increase. So this is the net difference. Now things cost me $4 more. Now they cost $8 more based on $100, $12, or 16% or 20% more. So at the end of 20 years, at the end of 20 years with a 2% gain and a net 2% loss because of inflation, you've got a 77% inflation rate based on the year one.
But that trend continues because it's longer than 20 years.
Yeah,
Yes.
but we're just showing you at 20 years. And to me, the inflation
Yes.
rate goal should be zero.
That's
That
why
should be the
you're poor.
inflation rate goal should be zero, but they factor it in. They want it to be 2%.
The long and the short of it is, that's why you're poor.
So the 145.68, after 20 years of inflation, that would have been 68.
Yes,
And now we're paying 145.
Yes.
because that's the net effect
Because
on
of-
your bottom line.
yes.
Thank you,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
This was in 2008, 2024, 16 years, okay? To us, 16 years is a blink, isn't it? I mean, so back here in this time, this was the personal, U.S. personal debt that people had, and this was the governmental debt, okay? It matched up about here in 2013, 2012, and then the U.S. debt, the government debt, started increasing like this. You see that? And the personal debt increased too. Put the next screen up there. All right, you see, and here's what, in 2008, this right here was the interest the government was paying on the debt that they have. And this was what we were paying for national defense. Well, look what's happened over the years. You see this? This is interest on the debt, and all of a sudden we've borrowed so much money, starting in here from 16 all the way to 2024, that now we're paying more, our government pays more in interest than they do for the national defense. That's what's happened to our country. Okay, the next one.
And you'll find defense as Article 1, Section 8 material there, and it's required by the Constitution for us to have a national defense. Okay? A lot of other things are not.
Next screen. Okay, this is the U.S., it's personal credit card debt. All right, this is what's happened. You know, it's pretty flat, down, came back up, went back down, and look what's happened here. Well, one of the things you'll see, Dollar General's having trouble right now. Dollar General, are you kidding me? The reason is people are tapped out on their debt. They've extended their debt. The next screen. All right, this is the amount of currency that's in circulation. We have about 2.3 or 2.4 trillion U.S. currency in circulation. Okay, that's how much money's out there. Okay, and so in 2008, we were right here. This shows you the increase right here. Right here, this is where we were in 2008. Every year, you see this annual increase in currency. Every year, they've added more money to the system. Okay, more money to the system. More money to just printing money. This is printing money. And so this is what happens, that increase in currency, this is the increase that we've had cumulative over those years. So look, they've doubled our currency in those 16 years, the amount of currency that's out there. We started at under $1 trillion, and now we've gone up to $2.3 trillion. All right, next screen. All right, this is the U.S. inflation. This is what we've been talking about. So in 2005, so now we're talking from 2005 to 2024 is 20 years, okay? So we start right here where the inflation was probably 3 or 4%, something like that. And this has been the inflation rate every year. Every year. So those were years where it's solid. Y'all remember things that happened during these years. And here you had the pandemic, which it rose, and like this. So this is the cumulative, nobody wants to talk about this. This is the cumulative inflation rate. So in 20 years, we've had a 51% inflation rate. So now, what was worth $1 back here is now only worth 50 cents. Here, you follow me? All right, so in the left, I want to say one thing on that. Let me move on. So 50+ % since 2004, since 2020, right in here, we've had almost 20% increase. That's why the last 4 years, your money doesn't go as far at the grocery store.
And you notice it.
20%. They'll tell you, oh, inflation's down. It's down to 3%. It's down to 2%. They're not talking about the cumulative over a period of time. When we get hit with 20% inflation, you know, people have trouble buying eggs and milk. They extend that credit. Remember I showed you that credit card debt's so high. They've extended their credit and they're struggling. The people who don't have a lot of money are struggling. People on fixed incomes, like some of us, you know, our money does not go as far. And you know what we do? We're resourceful. You know what we figure it out? Do like my mom did when she grew up in the Depression. What do? You get every bit of mayonnaise out of that jar. Don't you throw that jar away until you scrape every little bit out of it. You figure out how to use the peeling of the potatoes. Okay? So it's not, I don't say this to depress you. You need to understand, we don't say this to depress you because God's got us. Okay? But it doesn't mean it won't be some hard times. All right? But we just hang with us at least till next week, because there's a way, okay? There's a way forward. All right, what's the next screen? All right.
Okay, we've been here before as a world, okay? If you look at this,
We only have about 4 or 5 slides left.
yes, and if somebody has to go, I understand, okay? But please let us finish if we can, okay? This is a picture of Germany after World War I. When the British and the French tipped the scales with our help in World War I to beat them, they wrote the terms and the Germans had to pay for all the bills of everything that went on. They couldn't do it, so they started printing money, okay? This is a woman's paycheck. She's heating her house with it, with her money.
She's doing what?
Heating her house.
That's her furnace.
She's burning her paycheck, cashed it, because it's cheaper than buying the coal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coal's more
Over
expensive than
here,
using the paper.
the kids are playing with it in the backyard.
Cheaper than buying toys.
It's cheaper than buying toys. Over here, this woman's cooking her supper. And the story down here, this couple went and got their pay for the day. They go to the store to buy them a loaf of bread and something to eat. Okay? By the time they come out, somebody had dumped the wheelbarrow and stolen it and left the money because the wheelbarrow was worth something. I kid you not. These are examples that are taught in college economics classes for you to look at. That's where this stuff comes from.
I found,
And then Argentina's been doing it. Zimbabwe has been doing it over in Africa. Okay? Everywhere they print, like without ceasing.
this is an example of what was going on in Germany. I pulled it, this was reported by the BBC. This was in 1923. A loaf of bread in January of that year was 250 marks. By November, it was 200,000 marks. That's what we call hyperinflation. In fall of 2023, it cost more to print the money than it was worth. Okay? Just like a copper penny today, a copper penny, if you really have a real copper penny, it's really worth a little more than a penny. But they don't make pennies out of copper anymore.
That's why they put zinc in it.
So workers are often paid, back then workers, during that time in 23, workers were sometimes paid twice a day because the prices rose so fast, their wages were getting less, so they paid them twice a day. And gave them time, Marx said it gave them time to go spend it.
And this time, during this time is how Hitler came to power. These people were so desperate, they couldn't feed themselves, couldn't do anything, and he offered them a way out. They took it. People get so desperate when they can't buy anything. You know what the Bible says at the end? When you're not going to be able, unless you take the mark of the beast, you're not going to be able to buy or sell. You get desperate because you got to eat.
Bill's got a really good example
He
here.
does.
This is an example that he's lived.
When I was at IBM, I carried this, includes all my places I would stay at. Then when I was in Mexico, I had a territory that included all of Mexico, the central time zone of the United States and Canada for distribution. And so I'd go down there in the 1980s where I was using a 10 peso bill down in Mexico. I would get American cash converted to the pesos, and I would go along my way. In 1989, they had a big change of men leaving the country, supposedly leaving the country. And so when I would go into Mexico in '89, they say, you want 100 of these or one of these $2,000 bills. Okay, so their inflation was going out of control. So this took the place of this. This is worth $3 back then. This is worth about $3. Okay, so they added a bunch of zeros on there. The next year I was there, and they said, do you want a stack of 2,000? You want something like, you want like 50 of them right now, or do you want a $10,000 bill? Okay, so I get a $10,000 bill, still worth about $3. Okay, and so these have been disbanded. They took off $3 so that they could trade it better around the world. And so now the inflation is back where they're using new pesos, and instead of printing money, sometimes they will use the coins. This is the new $5. It's worth a quarter. That's a $5 bill, 5 peso bill, a coin. It's worth 25 cents now. And so you see what inflation does to your currency. You'd have to carry around stacks of these things, okay? This, by the way, is $1 million book. It's a book of John.
So you don't need a bodyguard all the way up the hill.
It gets your attention, doesn't it? Those are $1 million bills, okay, right there. Okay. So it's still important that we, as we're doing today, we're trying to learn what the genuine article is.
This is when money was backed by gold and silver back in Western civilization. Okay, we're backing up here to the 1300s. All right, you see this line right across here? That's 0% inflation. About the amount of gold and silver that was mined matched up what they needed for trade. Okay. Here is where Columbus arrived in America, and this is where the Spanish and the Portuguese and stuff stole all the gold and stuff out of from the Aztecs and others like them. Okay, so they went back and inflation went up, but I mean, you know, maybe 2% or so. It stays the same. It's just a miracle. It works. Gold and silver just works. Okay, it stays the same. Now over here, about right here, the Bank of England came into existence and started fiat currency, central banking. And if you see what inflation's done, the Industrial Revolution knocked some things down, and then they figured out they could really kick it into gear and take the productivity with it. So there you go. Okay? So they're siphoning off the wealth that should belong to the overall economy, and it goes into the hands of the few. Jefferson said that he'd rather face a standing army than central banking. And that's why. And they had these things that they were looking at back then. Okay? Does this help answer your question?
Yeah.
0% is the goal. Then you make good decisions and you can save, and you actually got something in your older age instead of it being constantly eroded every day. When it's being eroded through inflation, they're stealing it out of your pocket while it sits in the bank or in your back pocket. They're taking value from you every single day. That's what inflation is. It is theft. Who gets the money first? Whoever did the counterfeiting first. Except it's legal when they do it. And so they get the money up front to pay their debts. And as it trickles its way on down through the whole economy, it ends up pulling money out of your back pocket. Just like this is fluid. It's only got so much milk. They add more water to it. And they write a law telling you that you have to accept it.
In the end times, it says, when the Lamb broke the third seal, I heard the living being say, "Come." I looked up and saw a black horse, and its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice from among the four living beings saying, "A loaf of wheat bread or 3 loaves of barley will cost a day's wages." So it's just like what we've been talking about. It's going to happen at the end times. We
Here.
should do everything we can to be salt and light, and I'll just say this: vote in a way that supports what the Bible teaches.
This is the silver content of the denarius. That was their common coin.
This
that
is
they
Rome.
used. This is Rome. Okay? Over time. This is where they were.
Jesus lived in this time.
Yes, he did. And they were putting dross back in
over
the
here.
silver. They did
Back
what
over
the
here.
people in Jerusalem were doing. This is toward the tail end of their empire. This is what America's been doing to its dollar. Do you see a similarity?
See,
As this goes, we go. There's going to come a point when we're paying more interest than we do on our common defense. There comes a point where there's a point of no return. It's called a death spiral. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. If God's people are not going to be salt and light, we're going. You saw the twin pillars of George Washington said what this country was built upon. Those pillars are full of termites, and we're getting upset because they're poking through the paint.
remember the pillars that support were religion and morality, support the character and the actions of people.
BRICS, you can go study about this. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus a whole lot more of them now. The U.S. dollar since World War II has been a reserve currency around the world. They trade in it. They trade in something called the petrodollars. All oil had to be traded in dollars first, which drove up the demand for the dollars. They got tired of accepting our inflation and eating it. They're coming up with another currency, a trading system that bypasses us, so that, and that's based on gold and silver.
Yeah, BRICS
They
is
can't
gold
print
and
with just so
silver.
much of that. Okay, so that's the coming thing, and it's already here. It's in place, and there are countries now that are abandoning the dollar. Saudi Arabia being one of them. That's the biggest oil player there is in the Middle East. Okay? Back to last week. Does this look familiar? Is that not what we said on the board that we're instructed to be? Salt and light, which means be active. It's not sit on our hands. And both of them have a lot of similarities. Those are the things you said were the characteristics of those two issues.
Complacency is sitting in the church and not doing anything. That's complacency. Taking action, being salt and light, is engaging people. Okay? Making sure you're registered to vote. Get out there and vote. But we've got to be active. You know, if we just talk about the Lord in our class and in church and we don't share it with anybody, you know, here's how all this changes. Changes one new believer at a time. One new believer at a time. That little girl this morning, Teresa, another believer, another believer. So just know that we're continuing to show you a way that if our country chooses, that we can correct it, but we keep going the same direction. You know, it's either going to crash and force a change, or it's going to, get worse before it gets better.
Next week, we're going to talk about these ideological factions. We're going to talk about capitalism versus socialism and how they match up with the Bible. And we're going to talk about a pathway to restoration for this country. We're not dead yet. Our ancestors had it worse. They had to fight and form it. They bled out to form this country. We got to get mobilized and go vote. And we've got to be active citizens and get off our back pockets and do something. And work with people. And the beauty of it is, all we got to be is salt and light and spread the gospel.
And I'm not going to
And teach people.
This is me, and I hope it's you. I'm not going to let my joy rise and fall based on what I see on CNN or Fox News. I'm not going to let my joy rise or fall based on whoever gets voted in. Okay? Because my hope is in Jesus Christ. We got one more lesson planned. So, like I said, we're just pinpricking the issues, pinpricking the Bible and the Constitution, trying to get you engaged.